Thought about what you said to me the other day about my painting. Stayed up half the night thinking about it. Something occurred to me. I fell into a deep, peaceful sleep and haven't thought about you since. You know what occurred to me?
No.
You're just a kid. You don't have the faintest idea what you're talking about.
Why, thank you.
It's all right. You've never been out of Boston.
Nope.
So if I asked you about art, you'd probably give me the skinny on every art book ever written. Michelangelo. You know a lot about him. Life's work, political aspirations, him and the Pope, sexual orientation, the whole works, right? I bet you can't tell me what it smells like in the Sistine Chapel. You never actually stood there and looked up at that beautiful ceiling. Seen that. If I ask you about women, you'd probably give me a syllabus of your personal favorites. You may have even been laid a few times. But you can't tell me what it feels like to wake up next to a woman and feel truly happy. You're a tough kid. I ask you about war, you'd probably throw Shakespeare at me, right? Once more into the breach, dear friends. But you've never been near one. You've never held your best friend's head in your lap and watch him gasp his last breath looking to you for help. I ask you about love, you'd probably quote me a sonnet. But you've never looked at a woman and been totally vulnerable. Known someone that could level you with her eyes. Feeling like God put an angel on earth just for you. Who could rescue you from the depths of hell. And you wouldn't know what it's like to be her angel. To have that love for her be there forever. Through anything. Through cancer. And you would know about sitting up in a hospital room for 2 months holding her hand. Because the doctors could see in your eyes that the terms visiting hours don't apply to you. You don't know about real loss, because that only occurs when you love something more than you love yourself. I doubt you've ever dared to love anybody that much. I look at you, I don't see an intelligent, confident man. I see a cocky, scared, shitless kid. But you're a genius, Will. No one denies that. No one could possibly understand the depths of you. But you presume to know everything about me because you saw a painting of mine. You ripped my fucking life apart. You're an orphan, right? Do you think I'd know the first thing about how hard your life has been? How you feel? Who you are? Because I read Oliver Twist? Does that encapsulate you? Personally, I don't give a shit about all that, because you know what? I can't learn anything from you. I can't read in some fucking book. Unless you want to talk about you. Who you are. Then I'm fascinated. I'm in. But you don't want to do that, do you, sport? You're terrified of what you might say. You move, Chief.
The next handful of minutes, believe it or not, are brought to you by Grapplex. Grapplex, it won't come undone. Or it will. Whatever's sexier.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to episode 21 of the 69-Minute Eargasm. And with me is the birthday boy himself, the quintessential stud muffin, Joel Gertner. Joel, how's it going, man?
It's going good. How are you, Grant?
I'm doing just fine. Just to give everybody a heads up here, we're recording this on Friday, September 20th, this intro here. This episode's going to drop Monday, the 23rd. So as we're recording this, it is Joel Gertner's birthday. So if you haven't already, be sure to drop him a happy late birthday message on Twitter at StudMuffinSays.
Thank you, my friend.
Yeah, did you get the codpiece I sent over for you?
That was you?
Yeah, that was me. Look, here's the thing. The gift receipt is in the bottom of the box there, so if it's not the right... I didn't know your size. So if it's not right, just bring it back to Target and they'll swap it out for you.
Yeah, my right size just ain't right. You know what I mean? It's not standard. It's not the kind of thing that you get off the rack, so they probably wouldn't have had my size anyway. But thank you so much for caring.
Yeah, you know, I mean, if anything, you could just get yourself, like, some kind of a iTunes gift card or something. I don't know if people still buy iTunes gift cards, but, you know, it's the thought that counts.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Usually when I'm in the market for something like that, I kind of go to the guy that used to do Scotty Steiner's chainmail kind of, headdress kind of. I don't want to give too many industry secrets away on this show. I mean, some things are better left unsaid.
Yeah, of course. You got any big plans for the weekend?
Not the usual. Go out, take care of some stuff around the house. It's the usual, man. Nothing. How about you? You're going somewhere, aren't you?
Yeah. I'm gonna be in Houston. Well, it's been flooding in Houston. But I think the water's starting to go down here. I'm actually headed to go see Iron Maiden over at the Woodlands. I'm really excited about that. I've never seen Maiden before.
They're good.
Yeah, man, I'm pumped about it. This has been on my list since I was probably 16 years old. So, by the way, guys, if the sound is weird on this intro here, we had some internet issues. We weren't able to record via our normal convention, so we're just doing this over the phone just to get this out here because you, the listeners, have been waiting for this episode for long enough, I think,
But then once the interview kicks in, it will be recorded via Skype, and it sounded lovely, so the audio quality will improve once Grant and I kick it over to our special guest and I.
Yeah, we'll get to our guest here in a little bit, but, in lighter news, I do want to say, because of you, the listener, because of your efforts, because you were going to prowrestlingtees.com/Joel Gertner and picking up your Grapplex t-shirts, Ray Dacron was able to make his first payment on his taxes.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, one payment down, 36 left to go. So, I'm guessing by 2032 he'll have them all paid off, and then he can start on his taxes for this year.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
However that works. Good for him, man. Good for him, because he's a guy, man. He's a man in the world. He's an island. He's a real piece of work.
Yeah. That sounds about right. Yeah. Let's go with that.
Yeah, that's as good a compliment as you could give anybody like Ray. Would be that they are just a real piece of work and one fine mess that they've gotten themselves into, and in only the best way, only the most fashionable way.
Yeah, he's a like you say, he's a man about town, if you will, a man with tastes. I don't want to say exquisite taste, but he's got tastes. He's a as one of the judges on American Idol might say, he's a cold-hearted snake. He's been telling lies, or however it goes. I don't know. Yeah. You never know where you stand with the guy.
The cold-hearted snake. Look into his eyes. Uh-oh, he's been telling lies. I think that's what the judge would say about Ray Dacron, and maybe she would concur that he is a piece of work and just one of God's special angels that's been put here for other people to have to tolerate and kind of navigate around. And, there but for the grace of God goes Ray Dacron.
Yeah, and we have to say all these things because he really is literally the only person that would pay us for any ad space on this show. So, cheers to Ray Dacron.
Yeah, man. The man that pays for the ad space on the show. He's the man. Every time I think about him, I say, Ray Dacron, you're the man that pays for the space on the show.
Yeah, he is. Hey, wait. Does he pay the internet bill?
Is that why the internet's wonky today?
I don't know. It's just now dawning on me that those two things might be related. Yes.
I was about to either say funky or effing wonky, and it really doesn't matter because I corrected myself. So all of the people in international curse protection will be glad to know that I did not swear. Yeah, man, if he's the guy behind the internet, and I know he's not the guy behind the internet. I know Al Gore is the guy behind the internet. But if he's the guy behind the internet issues, then I take back all of the neutral and smarmy things that I've said about him.
Yes, but Ray, please don't cancel the check, though.
Yeah, don't cancel anyway, because better to have not much of anything than nothing at all.
But yeah, we were talking about our guest, man. I think we really should go ahead and start talking that up. And here's the thing. Before we really talk about who our guest is, I just want to say I'm really excited about this guest because I'm really pumped anytime we can have a guest on our show that was on the roster for WCW NWO Revenge on the Nintendo 64.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's only happened one before, just with Stevie Ray. But, I don't know. I was looking at the roster the other day. I was just kind of seeing, who else from that roster could we get on the show? I mean, you know Konnan. You're tight with him, right?
Yeah, I've worked with Konnan.
What about Lodi? Do you have Lodi's number anywhere?
I could probably get in touch with Lodi. So you want to just go up and down the roster for WCW NWO Revenge for the 64? Is that what you want?
Yeah, let's just do it. Why not? Psychosis. Does he? I don't know. Does he speak? I'm not sure. But you speak Spanish, right?
Un poquito. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we wouldn't want to have an entire podcast episode done in Spanish.
You're right. Right. Most of our listeners in the continental U.S. In Canada, in the UK, mostly.
You know what will help us get every single roster member from that game on this show?
What's
and having them come on in full, pristine Queen's English.
Yes.
This can be funded by an effort and a project that starts with all the people getting the Grapplex shirt that we were talking about. So I just want to make sure that they have all the information that they need for that. Go to prowrestlingtees.com/Joel Gertner, my t-shirt store, and you will see Grapplex Raw Red t-shirts, and those are the ones that you need to buy so that Ray Dacron stays happy and continues to make many fiscal errors in his life, including the unlimited sponsorship of our show.
Yes. And so that we can get our internet turned back on.
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, but, and I'm looking at the roster right now. I mean, I'm just kind of wondering, what about Raven? Why not, right? He's got a podcast.
Why not? What about Raven?
Here's the thing. We've really built the suspense up, I think, talking about our guests. We've talked about who it's not, right? We've covered roster members that are not on this episode. Maybe we should go ahead and let our listeners know who it actually is.
Maybe we should dance around who it is now. Maybe we should dance around who it is. Do you get it?
Yeah. I get it. I get it. I don't know if our listeners get it, but I get it.
We could dance around who it is because who it is the man who was disco dancing his way all throughout WCW in the mid to late 90s and was a witness to the Monday Night Wars and was a witness to all of the best and all of the worst and was a witness to all of the craziness in World Championship Wrestling. Our guest this week is a cool cat, a brilliant mind, a sharp in the drawer of professional wrestling when it comes to creativity, and really a guy that just loves to talk shop, and he's the one and only Disco Inferno.
Yeah, man, he was there when wrestling was at its hottest. You got to think about the years wrestling was hottest. What, 1997, 1998, maybe 1999. He was there for all of it. You know,
you're talking about all the way back. You're talking about in days of old, when nights were bold and condoms weren't invented. You wrapped a leaf around your beef, and babies were prevented. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, that's right. I do think, I don't know how to tell you this, Joel, because I know that you were, you know, on TV at the time, and but they actually did have condoms back then, though.
They did?
Yeah, I mean,
that would have alleviated 4 or 5 problems nationwide. Well, I mean, not that they're well, whatever. I mean, let's pivot. Let's toggle on to something else.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe we should let's just drift back over to our guest here. But yeah, man, Disco Inferno. I think he's got a lot of strong opinions. I think our fans are going to be really interested in about, you know, wrestling today versus wrestling in yesteryear. And he makes a lot of good points, and he even lays out some pretty interesting statistics for us as well.
Yeah, we had a great talk, and it was really, really, just really detailed, and it was kind of, you know, at some points it was hypothetical, but at some points it was kind of in practice, just looking at the business and seeing how it is, certainly comparing it to how it's been, talking about the here and now of the business, things that Disco thinks maybe there should be a little bit less of. And we talk about the future. We try to prognosticate a little bit. I mean, just really, really getting in there. It was, it seems to me like it was, I don't want to say it was similar exactly to the Mark Madden episode, but if you liked the Mark Madden interview, I can't see how you wouldn't like this one, because there are definitely some similarities.
Yeah, I mean, and it makes sense, right? I mean, two guys who were over in WCW in the same era over there, so they saw it from that specific perspective. So it would make sense that they had similar opinions on the state of wrestling.
And I wanted to pick Disco's brain, and because I wasn't there, and because I was seeing it from afar, you know, we heard what was going on, and there was all locker room chatter, and you were reading the sheets, you were watching the shows, you were putting it together for yourself. But I really wanted to get kind of the inside baseball from WCW at that time from Disco, and I think we accomplished a lot of that in this interview. We have a really, really good talk.
Yeah, it's a good long interview. It's about 45 minutes long, and man, I could have listened to him talk about it for even longer, but you know, schedules don't always permit that sort of thing. He's a very busy guy. You know, he's training wrestlers and still wrestling on occasion. He's got a shoot job and a couple of podcasts, and he'll go into detail on all that too. But man, I could have listened to him go for, you know, another 45 minutes.
Maybe if Ray Dacron got a shoot job. You know,
yeah, I mean,
like if he did Grapplex, like he could still do Grapplex and all the glitz and glamour that goes along with Grapplex, and he would be the man, and everybody would know that he is inextricably linked, and it's Ray Dacron and Grapplex. But he could also, just kind of, pay the internet bill and like hook brothers up, like me and you.
I don't disagree. I'm not going to be the one to suggest it to him. If you want to, but I don't disagree. No.
No, of course not. I'm not going to suggest that to him. Grant, were there really condoms in 98?
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't have that information directly in front of me. I would have to Google it. But I'm about 99%. I'm about as sure as condoms are effective that they were around in 1998.
Well, let me know when your Google Box starts working again, because I know on my end with the internet blackout of 2019, I got nothing. Like I can't. It's lucky we're talking to each other right now. But if you happen to get your Google Box up and running again, and you want to go ahead and input that query of were condoms definitely around? Don't even and keep it don't use 97 or 9. I want to know specifically about 98. Because that was a very
that was a banner year for you.
How to say, that was an eventful year.
All right, I mean, I will. You're in New York. Why don't you just open up the window and yell outside?
Quantitatively, numerically, eventful. Qualitatively, eventful. yeah, just I mean, firing on all cylinders.
Of course. Yeah, I was just going to say, though,
and if there were prophylactics around at the time, it would just, like, what difference does it make now? I don't want to sound like Hillary Clinton. What difference does it, but, but it would be nice to know, just because, knowing is, I think, a quarter of the battle, or 3/4 of the battle, or knowing is somewhere, knowing...
I don't know. I didn't watch G.I. Joe. I'm not sure.
The more you know, yeah. Why? If I would have watched G.I. Joe in '98, I would have known if there were problems.
What? No, moving on, though. No, I was just going to say, man, you're in New York. Why don't you stick out your head and yell out the window, ask somebody if they had condoms in '98? Someone's got to know on the street.
There's a lot of misinformation out on the street.
Can you do a shout out like they do in Cash Cab?
One of these days, we're gonna do one of these days, we should do a segment, man on the street, but like man off the street, like man just off the street.
Yeah.
Where I open my window and I yell out and try to connect with 2 or 3 just unwitting, you know what I mean? 2 or 3 people who have no idea they're about to be on a podcast. Because that's the fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the heat right there. You know what I mean? That's where, that's like psychology wise, like that's like it. That's what it is. Bruce. You know what I mean? Like we just open the window and like, hey, you, I've got a question for you. They're on a podcast. They have no idea. They don't know they're on a podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I'll kick it over to marketing and to legal just to make sure there's no pitfalls there. But no, I think it's totally doable.
Oh my God, we don't even have internet. If we've got marketing and legal, then there were definitely condoms in 1998.
I think you're right, man. I think you just connected the dots there in a way that I never would have been able to do.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Well, I think we've said everything we could possibly say in one intro to one episode.
And then some.
Yeah. Well, myth busted. No pun intended.
I like you, Grant. You're funny. I'll keep you around.
Thanks. I do my part. Here's the thing. I became a dad about 2.5 years ago. And so I really had to step up my dad joke game.
Do you know, how do you fix a tuba?
I don't know how.
Tuba glue. A tuba glue. tuba glue.
All right. Well, if last week was not our final episode, this is our final episode. We've used up all the material. We should probably go ahead and throw the disco before this goes any further off the rails. Ladies and gentlemen, Disco Inferno.
Well, only the best guests for our 69-minute eargasm audience, and that continues this week. We have with us one of the most entertaining, one of the sharpest minds, really, really brilliant, and just a good guy and somebody I've wanted to talk with for a while now, and I'm glad we were able to make this work today. Ladies and gentlemen, this is somebody who has been to the mountaintop, and they have been privy, and they have had access, and they have seen many of the great moments in professional wrestling. This is somebody who's been involved in many great moments in professional wrestling, and somebody who was around firsthand during the Monday Night Wars of the 1990s. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, I give to you the man, Disco Inferno. Disco, what's going on, bud?
Nothing much, Joel. How you doing? It's good to be on your show.
Oh, thank you, man. And I'm doing well. Gosh, there's a lot. I think we're fellow Brooklynites, aren't we?
Born. But I only lived there for 3 years. Then I moved to Atlanta, but I am Brooklyn born. Prospect Park. I don't really know. How is it in here right now?
Oh, all right. Well, that's kind of this. Yeah, that's not too far.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah,
my dad went to Boys High and was classmates with Lenny Wilkins.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. So I'm Brooklyn born. Proud of it.
I had heard that, and I know, as far as the gimmick goes, I know total, Saturday Night Fever and Bensonhurst and all that. But I had heard that you were born here.
Just thinking about, like, if you tell this, it's not even so much it's a good stereotype. But if you tell people you're from Brooklyn, New York, they just immediately think, like, wow, he must be a pretty tough guy. Because Brooklyn's it's kind of just like you think Brooklyn, New York is kind of like as it's looked at, growing up, that was like a tough part of, like, a tough part of New York, So it's like, people just think you're tough if you say you're from Brooklyn, New York,
Back then, yeah. I mean, it's changed lately. Yeah, now a lot of people, you mentioned Brooklyn to them, and they're thinking, whatever they see in Rolling Stone magazine, they're thinking kind of North Brooklyn, closer to the city, and all of the hipster vibe and everything.
Hipster vibe, right? Yeah.
But yeah, back then when you were talking about Brooklyn, you were talking about what South Brooklyn kind of continues to be, and it's great place to live and lots of unbelievably safe neighborhoods, and it's not, it's definitely not, a borough-wide crime spree or whatever some people may think it is, but also, yeah, you've got to have some chutzpah. You got to have a little bit of a chip on your shoulder and just a little bit of kind of street savvy, I guess, and also tons of famous people from Brooklyn. So that's cool, but I guess it's not too far removed from kind of where I want to start the interview, and where I want to start is kind of at the beginning. I feel that makes the most sense, and I kind of do that with all of my guests on the show, because I think no matter how much wrestling you might talk on other podcasts, your own podcast, whatever venue, whatever avenue you have, that's great, and we'll certainly talk a little bit about wrestling, but I like to talk about kind of the beginning, like when you first saw wrestling, what that was, how old you were, and how you kind of got into it, in a sense, before you were in the business, before you got into it. So that's what this question is, Disco, is walk us through early in life. What was Disco like as a kid, and when did you first get exposed to professional wrestling?
Perfect. Good question, because I've got the perfect answer. I've mentioned this answer before, but just for your audience that's never heard me say this. I believe I started watching wrestling around like probably 10 or 11 years old, I figure, maybe 9 or 10. But you got to understand, it's like growing up in Atlanta, Georgia, we were very lucky because in 1979, we got cable TV. Okay. And it was also the year that the Atlanta Flames had left to go to Calgary. And so now I was like, I was just looking for new things to watch on TV and stuff and all that. And I'd been watching WCW, like NWA, Georgia Championship Wrestling. It was on Saturday nights. Like 6 to 8, whatever it was, in the Superstation, right? So that was my wrestling. Then cable TV came right about the time I so 79. How old was I then? 12 years old, and I'd been so around that time we got WOR and USA Network, okay, on cable, and WOR is the old New York channel. So then I got to start watching the WWF back then, because there was on WOR. And I also got to watch every once a month on USA Network. They would show Wrestling from the Garden. They would show the Madison Square Garden cards live on USA Network, and I got to see those. And then I was a big fan. Well, I watched all the shows. Okay, so then it came Joe Pedicino came on channel 36, which is a local station there. Every Saturday night he had Saturday Night Superstars, which was 7 hours of wrestling from all over the country. AWA, Memphis, just different organizations, 7 different organizations, Watts' Mid-South Wrestling down in Mobile, Alabama, AWA, the local wrestling, just 7 more hours. So I would DVR, back in I would VCR. I'd VCR that show or watch it, watch as much as I could, but VCR the rest. So I was getting, so that's 7. I'd watch all 7 of that. 2 more, 1 more on WOR, 3 more on USA Network, 2 more. She had like maybe 13, 14 hours of wrestling every week on television that I was consuming. And I was consuming all of it. So I became kind of like a student of professional wrestling, in that I would, to consume all this wrestling and watch sports like I used to and stuff. I would basically on the VCR, I would fast forward through most of the matches until the finish, but I'd listen to all the interviews and stuff. I was a fan of the angles and the talking and stuff and everything and all that. So I just became a fan of like the storylines because I was just consuming all these stories. So let's fast forward now to 1992. I just finished college, and a friend of mine, the friend of the family's that was basically my soccer coach for years growing up, but then became a friend of the family that we'd share. Christmas Day we'd go over to their house. We'd share holidays with these people, my family and his family and stuff. I've known the guy for years, 30 years, probably more than that. And he was a travel agent, and he was actually doing the travel for the NWA. He was working with Ole Anderson. And the girl, whatever her name was in the office back then, I don't remember what it was, but he was booking the travel, and he said, "Hey, you want to try out for wrestling?" This is like the week I got out of college. There was a school in Alpharetta at the Alpharetta Auction Barn. It was owned by Bill Eadie, okay, and I guess Ole had a connection with him and stuff. And Steve the Brawler Lawler was the trainer. I went down there. I did the tryout. I think it was like $200 a tryout. They signed me over the course of the next 5 weeks. I trained like twice a week for like 3-4 hours at a time. And I gave them all the money. And I picked up everything so fast that was, because I had been a fan of wrestling. I'd see, me and my friends used to, throw working punches on each other and stuff and everything. It wasn't like, like growing up, you play wrestle with your friends.
Sure.
And, not like straight up backyard wrestling, but we would work it a little bit. You know what I'm saying? We play around.
But Disco, what other athletic pedigree did you? What other kind of physical background? Maybe high school sports, college sports.
Yeah. I played everything growing up, except for baseball. It was more soccer. Okay, so like all through my thing growing up, but then around 10th, 11th grade, because I'd gone to a private school in high school. Around 10th, 11th grade, because when you grow up and you're playing all the sports and everything's in your neighborhood, and you go to practice, it's 5 minutes away and stuff. And there's more of a culture of like community sports. So I started going to private school, and in the basically the ride was like 40 minutes away. So I kind of started getting disinterested in the organized sports. I like playing for the team and stuff and all that. I was good in soccer, decent in football. I quit playing basketball, but I stayed and played pickup in all the sports. I played out street hockey. I played in street hockey league too. So I was really good at street hockey and as a goalie. And I actually was the league MVP when I was 18 years old. So I was a decent athlete, decent at basketball. But like when I went to college, I just played intramurals, played a lot of pickup basketball. Just like tons of that was my thing. I graduated into basically just playing a lot of pickup basketball for exercise. So I just, I was an athlete. I knew I played sports. So I didn't play in college. But the intramural competition was pretty hot and heavy back then. As a matter of fact, that was my introduction to Goldberg at the University of Georgia. They used to rank the teams in softball, right? And Goldberg played with all the athletes. Right, so all the football players, they had an intramural softball team. Like high school that I went to won the state championship 3 years in a row at the AAA level, which was like the next to the top level in high school, and we set a record for home runs. Like 6 of those guys had gone on to Georgia, right? But they didn't play college baseball. They were good, but not good enough for college. And they were smart kids, so they went there for the education. But our intramural team was like filled with like state championships, and we were ranked number 2 in the school, right? So the whole thing, there was a lot of shit talking all the time, like because our team, like back then, is like intramural sports was a lot of shit talking, and Goldberg was a bouncer at one of the bars at Georgia, and like you could see, like it's funny because like the apartment complex I lived behind, but behind this bar that Goldberg worked at, and like our apartment complex was like fenced in. But you could see above the fence at the top of the stairs for this entranceway into a bar. You'd be able to see Goldberg on like Thursday nights working there. He always had a white Dallas Cowboys shirt with the star on it with the sleeves cut off, and he had a mullet back then, right? And he was a stud at football. He was like an All-American, playing this. So everybody knew Goldberg, And so it came down. Our teams were going to be playing each other in playoffs. There was the semifinals, and it was funny because had an agreement. We assumed we were going to be playing each other, and all the shit talking. We had like a 2 keg bet, like our team versus their. If we play the championship, the loser winner gets 2 kegs, right? Beer, obviously. I don't know what people drink these days. This is like it's like in that late 80s,
right? 2 kegs of White
college.
Claw, right?
Yeah, kegs of beer, right? And it was funny. Both of our teams lost. Okay, in the semifinals, he lost to they lost to the agricultural fraternity, and it was funny that there was a play where like there was 1 out. Goldberg caught the ball, spiked the ball because he thought there was 3 outs. And the other team came around and scored, and like they ended up winning the game by 1 run. So the agricultural fraternity had put up a sign on front of their fraternity, right? Goldberg's equation: 1 + 1 = 3. Okay, oh, no. And bro, this would have been like if social media was around back then, this would have been like all over the place, you know? Like because the football team ended up showing up there wanting to fight the fraternity. You know, it sounds like it was a big deal. You know, it's like this University of Georgia, intramural athletics around 1990-91. You know, stuff it up. But it was funny after I'd gotten out of college and and gotten into wrestling and I tried out. And after 5 weeks of training, I was ready to go. I just started doing indies. Got with Raven, met him in Atlanta. I just started wrestling and I'd met him, and so we started hanging out. He helped me come up with the gimmick, the Disco Inferno. I basically tried it for like 5 weeks in Memphis. He got me booked there, but I was very green still because I really hadn't had a lot of seasoning. You know, I trained for 5 weeks and just went out and started wrestling indies, which was right. If you work every weekend, twice a weekend for a full straight month, that was frequent. You know, but mine was like I wrestle a show here. I wasn't working a lot. You know, so Memphis is the first time I actually got to go and like wrestle like every day, and. You know, I was still green. I just needed seasoning, but I still had the character. But after I finished wrestling, I never I quit doing the Disco Inferno character because I thought it was like, well, they didn't like me because I only lasted 5 weeks here, right? But I still had it in the can, and as I'd gotten better and started meeting, I met Terry Taylor, met Jake the Snake, and through connections to GDP and Terry Taylor working at WCW, I'd gotten a tryout doing the Disco Inferno, and they hired me on the spot, and the rest is just all history. But basically, I rolled the dice with wrestling because I had college to fall back on, and I just, I never looked back. So then I went, I still do it today. So I'll never retire from wrestling, because to me, retiring from wrestling is you're retiring from getting paid to do it. And as long as people pay me to do it, and I don't care how old I am, as long as I'm physically able to, I'll never retire from taking a payday if it's worth it, So that's the way I look at it. So I'll never stop wrestling until I literally can't do it anymore.
What do you feel is most rewarding? Like whether you want to answer going back to the beginning of your career to now, or whether you want to kind of just stay in the present. But like out of anything you could do today, or again, if you want to answer it out of anything you've ever done. When did you feel the most rewarded? Yes, satisfied.
When I was making $15,000 every 2 weeks, guaranteed. that was the most rewarding. I was getting it was. I think it was for 1 quarter of my because that was a deal that in WCW signed. Each deal was basically 1 quarter guaranteed of every 4 quarters. So they could terminate your contract at any time, but they'd have to pay you for that quarter. Right. And WCW went out of business when my the second quarter of my $15,000 kicking in. So I had, to me, this sounds silly, but to me, the most rewarding was the fact that of all my career, I'd gone up to that point, was being able to sit home for 3 months and get $15,000 every other week and get a check in the mail for doing nothing. So for all the balls. Right. So that's so that was the most to me that's the biggest reward I've gotten out of this business, was be able to get paid for not even doing it.
What kind of stuff do you find yourself doing most of the time now? Like when you're around wrestling, what is or does it just vary depending on? Walk us through kind of in case people haven't seen you in a bit, and they just want to know what kind of stuff you're up to. It may seem like the kind of thing we should keep maybe towards later in the interview, but it kind of came up organically, I guess. What kind of stuff are you up to now? that you feel is rewarding, that you feel kind of creativity, creatively, that you're kind of, just what kind of stuff floats your boat these days?
I'm not a big fan of today's product, to be honest with you. I do the pod, I like these. I like doing these podcasts. I do 2 a week. I do one with Vince. This is like an hour long. Vince Russo and the Russo brand. We basically go over the news for the week and the controversial topics and talk about that. But I do the one with Konnan called Keepin 100 that you've been a part of before. And basically that's that isn't so much of a structured podcast as it is like me and my friend Konnan basically talking about stuff that interests us,
right.
Which of course is some wrestling, sports, culture, pop culture, politics. Basically we talk about controversial issues in general, and it's just like our take of two basically, old school wrestlers that lived through the best period of time in professional wrestling and performed in it, that are kind of like against like the new wave of political correctness that we see. And stuff and thing, and we just kind of like tell it like it is. So that's why it's called Keepin 100 now. In actual professional wrestling today, I've actually raised my price because I have a job. I work at a gentleman's club here in Vegas. It's a good job, and most of the money I make is on tips. So on Friday and Saturday nights are our best tips night. So it's got to be worth it for me to leave. That's where most of the indie shows are. So it's I get all these people ask all the time. I throw my price out there, and if they meet it, if it's worth it, I'll go do it. So I still do maybe like, it doesn't have, probably 10 to 12 shows a year that are worth it for me to go to. When my time permits, because my wrestling schedule my work schedule hasn't been conducive to it, but I'll train at the local school here. It's called Future Stars of Wrestling, FSW. And I specifically would go because they have like 3 or 4 trainers. Kenny King trains there. Sin Bodhi trains there. The D'Lo trains there. Jake the Snake. A lot of trainers that have come and gone. But when I would go, I would do 1 class a week, and it was just specifically related to kicking and punching and selling. Because the one thing that I said, if I'm gonna train somebody, and like they're gonna go, like if they're gonna go through our training school, and my name is gonna be like as one of the trainers, I always think that the guy has to look like he can fight for real if he's gonna be out there performing in front of the crowd. That's the one thing I think has hurt. Well, one of the many things that has hurt professional wrestling over the years is that you've seen, you were in the ECW locker room, but it's not, not too far different from the WCW locker room because a lot of the guys work there. But like, back in the day, and I went to the WCW locker room, there's guys like Rick Rude, Paul Orndorff would be there. So these guys with big barreled chest and big forearms, and just you shake their hand and like you feel like you're shaking a block of like a piece of cement. These guys are like and like they come. There's that perception that like when fans see people like that, they look larger than life, and they look like they can fight for real. They look tough. And I've always thought that was a very important thing to sell to people. It's like today, a lot of the guys do not look tough. They do not look like they can fight for real. They do, and if you're going to train with me, I'm going to if you're punching. The one thing I say to the wrestlers that I train, I say I don't want you to look like a sissy puncher. I don't like you. Right. I want you to look like you're a sissy in real life, and you're trying to look like you can fight. We're going to try and make it look like that. Like if a fan is in the crowd, if he hits the ring on you, you're going to probably punch him in the face, and it's going to hurt. That's the same. So I want you to make it look like you throw punches and kicks with purpose and intention. Make it look like you can fight, and then it's that's what I teach and selling. Which is a forgotten art these days. But that's specifically to that. But I get fulfillment out of some of the guys I've kind of endorsed that have gone on and been become successful. I was talking about Killer Cross 3 years ago. And stuff, and just because I just knew, I worked with the guy, and I said, this guy's has what you need, and Chris Bay, I've been talking about and stuff, and like he's up and coming and stuff. He's going to be a great talent, very young guy, very athletic, very very intelligent. I kind of get more satisfaction than that. To be honest with that, I got kind of a lot of satisfaction on knowing that, like in the year 2019. That I'm still kind of like I barely perform at all. I'm kind of I'm a podcast heel. Fans don't like me. They don't like what I say. I hurt their feelings stuff. But I could the things I talk about, I actually got a chance to go perform at Impact Wrestling, and people were saying like this is like the top heel in the business for the period of time I was in there. It's like I still like it's kind of gives me something to say like, hey, I know what I'm talking about. Watch how I do this. You know, and it's like, I got good heat at Impact. It was so that was kind of like fulfilling, knowing that I could still do this, this genre called professional wrestling at a very high level, even though I'm kind of like basically retired from it.
I want to keep it here, and not because I want to keep it negative. Like I don't want to. You'll see where I'm coming from, because I'm going to spin it around, and we like to keep it light and we like to keep it fun. But while we're here, I want to, because you mentioned that you like people to look like they can fight, and you want to make sure the punches look real and the guys look real and that kind of thing. But while we're on it, and then we'll get off it and we'll spin it 180 degrees. But while we're on it, hands down, number one, wholeheartedly, what do you feel is your biggest gripe or pet peeve with wrestling? Like, what has happened in the last decade, 2 decades in professional wrestling that you feel the business, the industry could do with a whole lot less of?
I'll give you a perfect answer, because I was just thinking about this yesterday, and I came up with this analogy. Okay, do you watch Game of Thrones?
I've seen Game of Thrones. I'm so behind on it. I'm closer to the beginning than I am to the end.
That's fine. As long as you know the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay. But if you know the setup, anybody that's watched Game of Thrones, is you look at the setup and they have the wall, okay, which is like this big giant ice wall that separates like the land behind the wall to like the land under wherever Westeros and all the other places were, right? And you have this wall. To me, the wall represents the line that we drew as professional wrestling as a genre. The line we drew where we would do things in the ring that, we're threatening the believability, but we're never really crossing that line. It's like there's what I call, it's like the plateau, the limits of the suspension of disbelief that fans will go through, go to accept that, like, hey, we're watching a fight. It's like, so what the wrestlers do to try to, make it look like a fight, and you go back, you watch matches like from years ago, they didn't do a lot of stuff. They were very proficient in strikes. They sold a lot. They sold a lot better stuff than all that. So there's a scene in Game of Thrones, and then the suspension of disbelief is very important in professional wrestling, because it gets the fans' mind in the right place. You want to pretend you're at a real fight, and you want to keep your emotions in that spot. If you lose it and you don't think you're watching a real fight, you're just not going to react with any emotion. Okay. So there's a scene in Game of Thrones where this dragon, basically fire-breathing dragon, breathes fire on this ice wall and burns the entire wall down. Okay, and all the enemies, all the all the evil creatures and stuff, they all just start marching down. That's what I looked like. That, to me, that's what's happened to professional wrestling and the way the guys work these days, is they've broken down the imaginary wall that we drew to try to separate, believability from the suspension of disbelief, to the point that what they're doing in the ring these days, the suspension of disbelief cannot even exist anymore, because what they're doing in the ring, they're doing too many things that look too phony. That, like, there's too many spots of the guys cooperating with each other that are not hiding it, instead of making it look like they're fighting. And the perfect example, like, is just like you watch it every match where guys climb to the top rope together. And you're on the top rope and they're balancing each other, trying to not fall off and stuff, and so they can do a move, And it's like the fans, the wrestlers today, the way and it's caused a different type of fan to show up to the matches, because now the fans all know it's a work. So they don't even look at it as at any point as if it's real. So all they're waiting for you to do as fans is to perform a spot, so they can applaud it. Which is what you get, which is a type of reactions you get from the fans these days. It just kind of like, it's just controlled applause, all chanting and singing. And it's like, and there's this false narrative going around, because the guys that are rating the matches are rating these matches so high, everything's 4.25 and it's 5 stars and 6 and 7 stars, all this, and they're giving subjectively giving these matches these star ratings. And I'm looking at a lot of these matches, I'm like, guys, these things don't even pass the believability test. Like, some of these matches you're giving 5 stars to, I'm like, this is like 1, because I'm pointing out some of the things. This is completely fake. You know, like some of the things, like this whole thing now with the wrestlers standing in the middle and letting the guy forearm you in the face, and do that back and forth. They go in no context of a fight would anybody ever do that in a fight. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and you guys, everybody's doing all these matches. Like, people watch this and that looks fake to them. They can't suspend their disbelief because you're doing things that like just don't make any sense whatsoever. And it's like, you know, so then what happens is you get fans of performance art. They're looking them at the artists, and then that's another thing we're seeing these days. Oh, we're artists and something. Well, I'll just say this: you're not going to sell to a general population of people, like a massive audience of people that you want to market your product to, and say, "Hey, let's come watch a bunch of artists fake fight each other." It's like that's not you're not going to sell that and generate a lot of dollars and money or people coming to your show. So what we have is everybody calls that, oh, we have the indie boom going. You know, it's like so we have all these different philosophies of what professional wrestling is. Oh, it's art and stuff. It's art and this. Yeah, you know what? You can go do a show like that, but not a lot of people are going to show up. You're doing it in front of 200-300 people. But then, like, we're talking about, oh, wrestling's so big because there's an indie boom. It's like, yeah, you guys are doing wrestling that isn't drawing big, massive audiences. You're doing wrestling that's drawing small audiences. And it's because of the way you guys are doing it. You're just doing too many things that make no sense in there and stuff. And to me, that is the main thing that's gotten in way and like bred this new group of fans that are detestable in my opinion, because like they just hijack the shows left and right. They want to like get, like I tell people, the people that think that the work today is better than what it used to be, all I got to say is like, if that's the case, like these people are more talented. I say back 20 years ago, I could get a pop from punching a guy and he's taking a bump. That would get a pop. Okay, guys can't even do that these days. They can't do a believable looking punch and sell to where the crowd responds to the punch. They have to do all this other crazy stuff just to, and they don't even get a pop. They just get applause. You know, and I think that's it. And it's the whole way we watch wrestling or even go to the matches. That's all changed. We're going there to rate after every show, the conversation's over. Oh, the booking stunk. Oh, this match is great. The conversations are not conducive to what you want to do to draw a weekly audience, because wrestling is still a soap opera that you are supposed to end the week asking a question about the next week. And then it's just, it's compelling television. We just don't have that anymore. All everybody cares about is how good the work is,
Totally fair. But as promised, though, let's spin it around at 180 degrees, right? Like kind of debate club style, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't know that you need to. I'm not putting words in your mouth that I don't know which side you're on, or even that you're on a side. But now that we've talked about it the one way, let's flip it and let's come at it and ask, what about wrestling right now in 2019, hands down, conclusively, is better than wrestling in the mid to late 90s, for example?
To me, honestly, the only thing is how easy it is to monetize the product now with all the revenue streams because of the growth of the internet. Bro, if there was social media back in the Attitude Era, I would have had 10 million followers.
Right. We
had so many people watching our product every week. Stuff like it was. We were a cultural icon. I try to tell people to put in perspective how popular we were. Is that if you look at the combined audience of Monday Night Wrestling back in the day, you would get it'd be close to like 8 to 10 million people be watching sometimes, right? So you take that number.
And I always felt that was low. I know they turn households into people, and I know there are calculations where even by doing the algorithm, but I've always thought that somehow a portion got unrecorded because, man, when you're on the subway train or you're walking on the sidewalk on the street, whatever, and you see whoever's not wearing an Austin shirt is wearing an NWO shirt, you could kind of do the math based on 300 million, and you could kind of realize that more than 8 million people are probably watching it if so and so many people are actually wearing the shirt. But that's neither here nor there.
Well, and I'm a big math guy too, because to me, math and numbers represent facts, right? So, and then you look at that audience. This is the perfect perspective. I try to explain to people this is how popular we were. So then when ESPN, remember ESPN was on ABC for Monday Night Football, it was on network television. Okay, well then they went to cable television, and ESPN got Monday Night Football. Bro, you know how many people are watching Monday Night Football on ESPN? 10 to 11 million people.
Right.
That is like the same number of wrestling wrestling was right there with football.
Right.
That's how the NFL and professional wrestling, the WCW, WWE audience combined, was like they were as popular as each other. Now let's fast forward 20 years. Okay, the median age. So that basically, we would target wrestling to the 18 to 34-year-old male audience, because basically that in TV, that was your target market, right? So let's fast forward 20 years, and the median age of a professional wrestling fan in the year 2000, to take a while, okay, just off the top of your head, do you guess what it was? The median age is the middle age. It's the middle person. So half of the.
Now, if I remember correctly, they used to say that it was kind of not far off just the age of the average person in life. If I remember correctly, it used to be something like 39.
Well, yeah. No, back then it was 27.
27, is that right?
Yeah, half the audience was lower than 27. Half the audience was higher than 27.
You're talking about the mid to late 90s.
Mid late 90s, right?
Okay, I'm probably talking about 10 years after that, but yeah, I'll buy that. 27.
So this is all you got to say. This is the way I say what has happened to professional wrestling. To me, this is the simplest metric to look at. The median age in 2000 was 27. Take a wild guess, and the median age is 2019. You'd be shocked.
Is it closer to 40? Is it around 40 now?
52.
Is that right? 52? Okay. That seems high.
It does seem high, which shows you what has happened to young fans. They have not gravitated toward this type of wrestling that they're seeing the past 20 years. That's because we're literally losing the audience, because the fan base is literally dying. Okay, because now the median audience is 52. Half your audience is older than 52, which is not good, because that audience will die eventually. Like the numbers, and like literally half your audience is under 52. Young people are not gravitating to professional wrestling anymore. And I profess it's because of the way we're selling the product. We're selling it as like performance. You're selling it as that. And I'm just saying, bro, the people are going to go watch the real fights then. There's a lot of UFC on.
You're absolutely right, dude, because a 16-year-old might bring a parent, okay? And when you average the 16-year-old and the parent, there you go, and you're in your late 20s. Right. But somebody who's 40 and going to the shows, the average is not 52 because they're bringing somebody that's 65 or 70. Right. You know what I mean? So you kind of need a lot of kids to be bringing parents and having that average be kind of, younger than the average of a person walking the streets in real life.
And then the most fascinating thing about this is the WWE, like they had to have been privy to these numbers, but they were putting on a show for kids. And it's like, what you guys are putting on a show for kids, and the kids are not watching it. It's like, so like, I don't know what they're, it's like, there's so many weird narratives in wrestling today, and so many weird things that these people are doing that I just think it defies simplistic logic sometimes. There's you have to have this one thing, like, from ECW, there's something raw about professional wrestling. It's sex appeal and it's violence. And it's like, we've kind of taken, in this society, with these millennials and stuff, it's like, we've kind of had to take away the sex appeal, because that's they're painting that as like something like, if you want to see a hot girl in a show, then you're not being supportive of the women as performers, and you're looking at them as sex objects and objectifying them. And I'm like, okay, that's fine, but that's the way I feel. I don't want to see a bunch of unattractive women go out there fake fighting. I'd rather see a bunch of hot women, having cat fights and stuff, because I'm more attracted to hot women than I am to like average looking women or ugly women. And it's like, and people don't want to accentuate the sex appeal. And I'm like, who are you marketing this audience to? It's like, you need sex appeal if you want a bunch of people to watch this. That draws. And it's like that this audience and this kind of culture now, oh, you can't talk like that. And I'm like, all right, well, fine. This is nobody else. It's like, so wrestling's gotten that edge taken out of it. And because the fans that are in it, they're kind of hijacked, and they're not letting it be more realistic and more raw, they're like it used to be. Like with ECW, we like, think about it. ECW, people suspended disbelief. They knew it wasn't real, but they suspended disbelief. And you had Tommy Dreamer pile driving Francine. And stuff. The crowd was going crazy, and it's not like everybody in that crowd was a horrible person for cheering that spot. It was just looked at as entertainment, but now it's like, oh, you can't do that because like people will think that, like, no, you're speaking for other people now. It's like, speak for yourself. If you don't want to watch stuff like this, then don't watch it. But don't tell that company, hey, you can't do this because we won't watch. It's like, fine, you guys won't watch. We'll probably get more people to watch though, even if you guys don't watch. And trust me, you guys probably will watch anyway. You're just lying about it, you know.
Disco, a couple of last things, and I want to give each of the. Well, I know we've only got you for another 5 minutes or so, maybe 5, 6, 7 minutes, and I want to give each of these a few minutes. Okay. So I want to go into the past, but I want to stay. I think I'll stay where we are now and actually look into the future and let this be your chance to be a genius. And nobody can predict the future, but maybe if somebody plays this back 5 years from now. Oh,
well, my track record is impeccable. I used to write for columns for WrestleZone, and if the first one I wrote called "The Internet is Killing the Business" in the year 2007, you read that and you see where we are now, and it's like, yep, you were spot on. 12 years ago,
then you're the guy I need. And here's the question: we are in September of 2019. Everything is kind of there's a cycle beginning. There's a change coming. There's AEW is coming to TNT. NXT is going to be up against it. Now we've got Impact on Access. Everything is it's almost like a fall season starting. It's almost like we're going into a new decade, the 20s, and it's almost like there might be a new war. But I don't want to put words in your mouth. But what I do want to get straight from you is this: we are coming up on January 1st of 2020. And the landscape as it is now. 5 years from now, as we approach January 1st of 2025, what does the wrestling landscape look like? How is it different than it is right now?
I think it's the exact same. I don't think Fox or TNT are renewing wrestling on their networks. I think there's probably going to be I think they're getting buyer's remorse as it is, to be honest with you, because I hear all these stories about Fox is like they're trying to tell the WWE how they want their show run, and that the WWE is already getting pushed around. It seems like the AEW, I don't know, man. It's like I have to be able to, once I see the type of show that AEW is going to put on first. But to me, all of this stuff right now, all the talk about wrestling, bro, it's all in the bubble. It's all the people that are just watching wrestling. None of this conversation, none of these things are really getting people outside the bubble interested. It's just making all the people that are still watching inside the bubble, which is why I've been on record and I've said all along, I think that the AEW should go head to head with Raw on Monday night, because to me, I'm a facts guy, numbers, right? Meltzer said recently that they were looking for, one of the estimates was they wanted 500,000 viewers for on TNT. I'm like, really? I go, then it makes no sense not to go on Monday, because every Monday on Raw, from the time the show starts at 8 o'clock at night to the time the show ends at 11 o'clock at night, they're losing like 500,000 people from the time the show starts to the time the show's over. So I'm like, so if you're looking for 500,000 people, you've got a bunch of people that are turning off that show every Monday night. And it's like, if there was another show on, I guarantee you probably 90% of them would go to that show to start off with. Then you have the general interest of the audience like going now. It's like the numbers don't really, to me, and this is what I thought the difficulty was. When they said they were going on Wednesday night, bro, it's like professional wrestling fans have enough wrestling they watch already. And you're trying to ask them to consume a whole new 2 hours on top of what they're watching already. And it's like, wow, man, you're really like asking them to do a lot of stuff. You're like, how much TV can these fans watch? And it's like, I honestly think the way wrestling is right now, unless they do something, unless they start going back to a little bit more edgy, start saying F you to the politically correct crowd that tries to, the cancel culture and the outrage culture that wants to complain and say you can't do things. If they tell them to F off and just try to go with things that they know works, wrestling can become popular again. But as it is right now, the wrestlers, there's not enough big guys. They don't look like larger than life superstars. They don't wrestle like people that can fight. And there's not enough compelling storylines. And those things have to change. And if they can, if you can get a couple gems, like another Stone Cold or Rock, or like a guy that's so good that he alone can draw an audience, if you can get some of those guys come into the business and get interest, it can grow. But I just see it in the same spot it's going to be 5 years from now to where we are today. So the same thing.
I'll take it back to the past for my last question to you, Disco, and this is another one. It's kind of hypothetical. I want to see kind of where you're going to go with this. Let's say hypothetically, just like real sensitive kind of presidential tapes, presidential phone calls, or like all the stuff in history that you never know of at the time because the public wouldn't be able to understand and digest it, but it comes out decades later. Let's say hypothetically, there's a 20-year statute of limitations. In other words, it's September of 2019. You are privy to say anything you want about WCW and the Monday Night Wars that you were there to live firsthand. Something that Disco Inferno might know, but that outside of a select number of people that he shared the locker room with in the company, people would not know. This is anything September 99 or prior about WCW or the Monday Night Wars that people might think they know, or that you have been itching to talk about, but that it just because of time sensitivity or whatever else, you haven't talked about it yet. What is one thing that you, straight from the horse's mouth, could let the fans know from 20 years or more back that they have no idea?
That basically, like this, you see this in politics too, is that the culture of society was very different 20 years ago to the way it is now, and the amount of times that I saw professional wrestlers. I mean, bro, I laugh at it because like today people would be just absolutely outraged at stuff like this if it got out, but back in the day, it's like if girls took pictures with you and stuff, sometimes I can't count the amount of times that the wrestlers would like either grab their ass or grab their boobs, and the girls would just laugh. There wasn't like there was like an assault or it's just like that's just the way the stuff was back then. It was just like wrestling was different. It was just the culture was different. The locker room culture was different. It was just, we were, the guys, I hear, wrestlers today like to spend all their time in the rooms playing video games. Back then we used to go out and party till the wee hours of the morning, or try to, each night. It's just like, if you would have seen like what we were, the culture, like I just said, the culture was different. And it's just like, the people these days would be outraged at the culture that we had back then. But back then it was like, nobody was talking about how bad of people we were or stuff and all that. We were larger than life superstars, and it's like, the amount of times I saw that happen is like, today is like, good grief. People would be fired left and right, and their careers would be over. Seriously, they would, in this day and age, people's careers would be over. I mean, people obviously don't do it now because they don't want to lose their career. But like back then, that was, I can't tell you how many times I saw that. It was unbelievable, And I'd be telling the guys, you can't do that. You can't grab a girl in the ass, It's like, I say it all the time. You can't. Please don't grab her boob. You can't. You're not supposed to grab her boob.
Disco. What do you want? What do you want people to know, man? Where do you want people to find you? What are you up to? Shill some stuff.
At The Real Disco on Twitter, at Disco Master GG on Instagram and Snapchat. Also, you can catch me on Keepin 100 with Konnan. It's our podcast that drops late Wednesday night, early Thursday mornings on MLW Radio. Also on the Realm Network for the Russo brand, I do Vince's show with him. It's called Lions, Tigers, Bears, and Disco. That drops on Fridays. Also, you can catch me training at FSW Vegas. It's really, honestly, the Vegas school right now is like, it might be one of the best schools in the country, especially for out west, because there's a lot of guys that are getting TV time now, or starting to make their way in the business and start to rise through the ranks, and they're going to go on to great things that come out of that, the training facility there. And you can also catch me if you're ever in Vegas and you want to come to the world's largest gentleman's club. That's where I work, is Sapphire Gentleman's Club. If you dial 702-303-3430 and mention my name, we'll send you a free limo to pick you up, get you in for free, and get your free drink. It's a savings about $80 or $90 a person. How about that?
That's awesome.
Cool.
Dude, thank you, dude. Thank you for keeping it informed. Thank you for keeping it interesting. And I really appreciate you being on with me. I'm going to let you run. But ladies and gentlemen, that is the one and the only Disco Inferno. And we'll be back with more 69-minute eargasm after this.
Thanks for having me on, Joel.
Thank you, dude.
And well, those who do not learn, inform, and entertain themselves with history are doomed to repeat it. When it comes to wrestling history, in some cases, that might not be a bad thing. I know there are lots of people that pine for the days of way back, that love the wrestling of their childhood, and that's what this segment is all about. This is our history segment. It's what has happened on this day in professional wrestling. It is for Monday, September 23rd, and with that, I pass it over to the man, John Pantozzi.
Thank you, Joel. And here we go for September 23rd. Let's go all the way back to 1917. All-time Mexican national hero El Santo was born in Hidalgo, Mexico. We jump to 1961 in Detroit, Michigan. Dick the Bruiser defeated Vern Gagne to win the United States Championship. 1968 in Orlando, Florida. Nick Kozak defeated Johnny Valentine for the NWA Florida heavyweight title. Here's one a lot of people might not know about. 1977, Andre the Giant defeated Gorilla Monsoon in San Juan, Puerto Rico at Roberto Clemente Stadium in a boxing match with Jersey Joe Walcott as the special referee. 1979, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, in a Canadian title match with the AWA title not on the line. The Canadian champion, Dewey Robertson, beat the AW champion, Nick Bockwinkel. We all know that Dewey went on to become the missing link. Now we jump to 1987 at a Saturday night main event taping in Hershey Park Arena in Hershey, Pennsylvania. For the first time, Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage formed the Mega Powers. That show would air on October 3rd. 1996, also in Hershey, during a Raw taping, Mark Mero defeated Farouk Ron Simmons to win a tournament for the Intercontinental title. And in 2001, we finish up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Looks like a good card. Christian defeated Edge to win the Intercontinental title. Rhino defeated Tajiri for the United States title. And Kurt Angle defeated Stone Cold Steve Austin to win the WWF World Heavyweight title. And that wraps it up for today, September 23rd in history.
I don't usually have any editorial influence at all on these because you do such a great job on your own. But personally, I would be remiss if I did not toss in, out of order as it were, September 23rd, 1995, a day that for me changed my life. 24 years ago today, it was the day that saw the debut in Extreme Championship Wrestling of three talents as far as their debuts on a live show. Myself, Bubba Ray Dudley, and Stone Cold Steve Austin. Myself as a timekeeper and a ring announcer, Bubba Ray Dudley as Mongo, the bodyguard for Fonzie, and Steve Austin as Superstar Steve Austin, who technically kind of made his debut 1 week earlier, the previous Saturday, on the video wall at the ECW Arena. But the first time he ever stepped foot at an ECW event was September 3rd, 1995, like Bubba, like myself. A big day, perhaps. Who knows in wrestling history? That depends on how you measure, and that depends on your metric of it. But for me, definitely a highlight of my career.
Fantastic information.
There you go. Thank you so much, man. Thanks for being with us again this week.
Okay, and we'll see you at the matches.
That's it, man, and we'll have more 69-minute eargasms after this.
Graplex message. Hi, Ray Dacron is my name, and the name of the CEO of Graplex. So there's this thing, t-shirts. Have you ever seen one? What about film, though? But have you ever, for example, held one? or even worn it on your own body? Well, then here's a t-shirt. This is one made to celebrate the sports entertainment enthusiast in all of us, even down to the color. Raw red. Raw red. Yes, it's available for purchase. Sure. What size are you?
Now available at ProWrestlingTees.com/Joel Gertman.